So, you want to be able to speak French with confidence one day. Well, in this video, I'm going to go through 6 qualities or habits that I've learned while walking this path and that I think you need to develop in order to reach that very goal. Du coup, si tu es prêt ou prête, allez, c'est parti. Salut tout le monde! On this channel, I help you to progress faster towards speaking French with confidence by sharing my own personal insights after learning this language for the past 9 years. If you enjoy this video or my work in general, please do consider leaving a like underneath the video. It helps spread my content to more people. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 P's. I had about 3 or 4 P's and then I was like, I've got something here. Let's make them all fit into this pattern. That will get you to parler français avec confiance. Tout d'abord, the first P is practice. Speak in a variety of ways, contexts, and situations. I won't spend long on this one because you've heard me say it 100 times on this channel, but the first and most important way to get better at speaking is to speak. It's so obvious, and yet so many of you aren't doing it or aren't doing it nearly enough as you should be. See my previous video on excuses for not speaking. You can speak to yourself, speak with a tutor, get a language partner, say a sentence here and there in an otherwise all English conversation, shadow the actors in the series you watch. So many ways, and that is far from an exhaustive list. But you must gradually build up to having a life that involves regular spoken French. Sometimes it's hard to find reliable partners, so I'm thrilled, honestly, to say the members in my community, the CFSC, get access to group conversation classes and also organise speaking practice between themselves around different themes, such as in the Club de Lecture or the book club. So that can make it so much easier to get that practice in. Ensuite, we have play. Practice shouldn't always be thought of as predefined times when you speak. You should be playing with the language in your own time or with others. Experiment with pronunciation of expressions, words, grammar, while you work, while you shower, on the bus, in your head and out loud, syllable by syllable. Play with the language. Never stop being curious. That's how we learned as children, and I think that sometimes we forget to be like that. And look how children end up speaking the language. French will then gradually flow more naturally when you need it for an interaction if you're constantly playing with the language. Personally, I am constantly playing with the language. As I was writing this part of the video, I started to fiddle with my eyelids for some unconscious reason or another, and it forced me to recall the name for them in French. Les paupières, if you're wondering. But I also asked myself, comment dire ça, as I searched for how to say it in French. And that's a very common question that we as foreign speakers need to get used to using and saying. So therefore it should start with that conscious thought to ourselves. But I was also reminded of a song by the artist Gims in which he uses the word paupières. So I'm training the memory too, which is going to allow me to recall the word in conversation one day. So play with the language, be curious and enjoy it. The most successful language learners play with the language. They're passionate, which is another P. They're passionate about it, and so naturally they play with the words, expressions. They're not afraid to experiment. And this all contributes to future confidence. Le P suivant, c'est pragmatique or pragmatic. Be pragmatic. There is so much advice out there for the right French to speak. And I know here I am giving you more. But in my personal experience, the best French to learn is the one you need for your life right now, à cet instant présent. Life changes, goals change, hobbies change, kids change schools, jobs change. So the French you learn should adapt with those changes. We often just want to speak fluently and we are in a rush to shove as much into our heads as possible, but that does not work very well. We need to set goals to learn French from the most relevant areas of our life. Listening to one French song over and over again, that's relevant to your life right now. By singing along, you could learn some very useful vocab or grammar. Aim to use a lyric in your next conversation. Going to a French restaurant anytime soon? Learn and practice the French for common scenarios that could arise there. So yes, be pragmatic in this sense, but also don't be afraid to use the simplest French over and over again. Sure, it's nice to learn that lovely expression, ça ne casse pas trois pattes à un canard. But the simpler, ce n'est rien d'extraordinaire, is A, easier to remember, and B, allows you to practice words you're more likely to use in other situations. How often are you actually going to talk about duck legs, huh? But you're going to maybe want to talk about things that are extraordinary or not extraordinary quite often. Certainly more often than ducks. But of course, this is just one of so many examples I could come up with. When you're a more comfortable speaker, then you can start adding the fancy language. But get the foundations right first. Be pragmatic. You'll get through more conversations speaking fluidly, and therefore fluently, and confidence will naturally come from that. On passe au quatrième P, et c'est patience. Patience. Be patient. Remember the following expression, and I'll say it in French first because it's more beautiful. Le français, surtout le français oral, ne s'apprend pas du jour au lendemain. French, especially spoken French, isn't learned overnight. You might not do something earth-shattering in each conversation, but that doesn't mean you aren't progressing. The more you can stay patient and enjoy the process, the happier you'll be. And the happier you are, the more you'll be able to project your confident self. Sometimes we need to slow down to speed up, something that definitely didn't come naturally to me at the start and for the first few years. But this definitely holds true for French. Patience is certainly a habit that needs to be learned by a lot of us. Thankfully, the CFSC embodies this value, and by signing up for 12 months, you will definitely develop that patience and in the process, enjoy the journey more, allowing you to speak with more confidence and freedom. A link is in the description below the video, by the way. Enrollments are still open until March 2nd if you're watching this near to the time when the video was released. Le cinquième P, c'est be perceptive. It's critical that you are able to notice the smallest of signs of progress so that you don't fall into the trap of thinking you aren't moving forward and that all you have are things you can't do or say. For example, one of my students was overjoyed the other day because she was simply able to correctly pronounce the name of a town of the French person she had just sat next to and got chatting to. It was the simplest thing, but it was so significant for her, and she was able to notice it and feel that energy and that rush that came from it. But you, do you find yourself saying et tu, even though you know it's et toi? Sometimes you can know it for months before you finally manage to use it in real-time conversation. It's only 2 words, but it's significant in your journey because of how long it took you to get it out. Be perceptive of these things and keep going. They fuel you. Enfin et surtout, which incidentally is an expression that I've been trying to get to stick for the longest time, and I was perceptive, so I forced myself to get it out for this video. But enfin et surtout, last but not least, is to be proud. At each new level you reach, you'll find new challenges, but don't forget how far you've come. Always being aware of that will ensure that you feel good about yourself in any given moment, and that will allow you to project confidence when you speak French in your social situations. Often, you have to generate in the first place the confidence you want to feel. Acknowledging to yourself what you've achieved is one way to do that. You're learning a second language. It's so rewarding, and I think often it's taken for granted because so many people in the world speak a second language, often English, to a high degree. But this is just about you. You're learning that second language. It's so rewarding, but it's so long and sometimes arduous. So you need to give yourself credit et surtout, sois fier de tes progrès à chaque stade que tu atteins. In fact, I want to invite you to leave a comment down below saying Je suis fier de moi et de mes progrès. That's fier, F-I-E-R, for the guys, and fier, same pronunciation as far as I know, F-I-E accent grave, R-E, for the ladies. Voilà, c'est tout. Keep the 6 P's in mind and gradually develop each one, and you will be a confident French speaker. And for help getting there, join the Confident French Speaker community. Until next time, merci d'avoir regardé et à la prochaine francophone. Ciao, ciao.